Have you ever found yourself in a relationship with a narcissist, only to reach the point where the best option was to implement the dreaded no-contact rule? It is something we all hear about when dealing with narcissists. But have you ever stopped to wonder what actually happens to the narcissist when you cut them off completely? How do they react? How do they cope with losing control over you? Trust me, you're about to find out. In this video, we'll break down the emotional and psychological impact of no contact on a narcissist. You won't want to miss this, as we explore the truth behind the scenes. So, stay tuned, like this video, and subscribe if you haven't already. Let's dive into the fascinating yet often painful dynamics of no contact with a narcissist. Alright, now that you're settled in, let's get right into it. When we talk about narcissists, we're not just talking about people with a little bit of an inflated ego or a tendency to be selfish. We're talking about individuals who operate in a self-centered world where everything revolves around their need for validation, admiration, and control. These individuals often engage in toxic behaviors that drain those around them, especially in intimate relationships. So, what happens when you finally reach the point where you have to go no contact? Well, the first thing you should know is that no contact is one of the most powerful tools you can use to break free from the emotional prison a narcissist traps you in. It's not just about cutting them off. It's about reclaiming your power, protecting your mental and emotional well-being, and setting clear boundaries. But here's the thing. While you might feel relief when you implement no contact, the narcissist? Not so much. The initial shock and confusion. When a narcissist first realizes that you've gone no contact, it's likely to trigger an intense feeling of shock and confusion. This is a reaction that stems from the narcissist's deep need to maintain control in every aspect of their relationships. In their world, losing control is an unthinkable scenario, and the idea that someone would remove themselves completely from their sphere of influence is utterly baffling to them. Narcissists feed off the attention and validation they receive from others, and they hone their ability to manipulate people into providing this external validation whenever they want it. They're experts at using charm, persuasion, and emotional tactics to draw others into their orbit and keep them emotionally invested. However, when you make the decision to go no contact, cutting off all forms of communication, whether it's texts, phone calls, social media interactions, or in-person encounters, they are left in the dark, unable to access the validation they so desperately crave. For a narcissist, being ignored is perhaps the most devastating thing that can happen. It directly challenges their fragile self-worth and sense of identity. Their entire emotional well-being hinges on the attention and admiration of others, so when that is suddenly removed, it's a blow to their ego that they cannot easily brush off. The shock of realizing that you have completely withdrawn your presence in their life can be overwhelming. At first, they may not even comprehend why you've made this choice. They could find themselves scrambling to understand the situation, retracing their steps in their mind, analyzing the last interaction you had, and trying to come up with some logical explanation for your actions. This is when the narcissist's emotional immaturity becomes glaringly obvious. They might try to rationalize your decision, convince themselves that you must have been having a bad day, or that something external caused you to act this way. However, deep down, they're struggling with the reality that their control has been shattered, and they cannot handle the vulnerability that comes with this loss. Since their sense of self-worth is entirely dependent on external validation, this period of confusion can lead them into an emotional tailspin. They might feel disoriented and powerless as they try to piece together what happened and how they can regain control of the situation. Attempts at hoovering. As the initial shock begins to wear off, the narcissist will likely shift to their next strategy: hoovering. Hoovering is a term used to describe their attempts to suck you back into the relationship, much like a vacuum cleaner drawing in debris. These attempts at hoovering can take on many different forms, depending on the narcissist's personality and what they believe will be most effective in getting you back into their grip. They might send you text messages, make phone calls, reach out through social media, or, if they can manage it, they may even try to run into you in person. The ultimate goal of hoovering is to regain control over you and to start extracting emotional supply from you once again. For the narcissist, the idea of not being able to manipulate you into providing them with constant validation is intolerable, so they'll stop at nothing to try to break your resolve and draw you back into the dynamic. When you go no contact, the narcissist feels a sense of powerlessness that is deeply unsettling for them. They are accustomed to having at least some level of influence over you, whether through guilt, charm, or other manipulative tactics. And now that you've taken that away, they're desperate to reclaim it. To do this, they will use a variety of strategies designed to make you feel obligated to re-engage with them. These might include sending you love-bombing messages that remind you of the good times you shared, or trying to guilt-trip you by invoking memories of the good moments in your relationship. They may even offer a half-hearted apology for their past behavior, but it's important to recognize that these apologies are rarely genuine. Instead, they are often a means to an end, with the hidden agenda of drawing you back into the fold so that they can resume extracting emotional supply from you. If they believe that there's even the slightest chance of you breaking the no-contact rule, the narcissist will continue to pursue you with increasing persistence. They might try to convince you that they'd have changed, or that they've learned from their mistakes, but all of these efforts are simply a manipulation to regain the emotional leverage they once had over you. The longer you hold your ground and maintain no contact, the more frustrated and desperate the narcissist becomes. They begin to feel the loss of control more acutely, and this frustration can manifest in different ways. Some narcissists may escalate their attempts by becoming more aggressive or demanding in their communication, while others may try to use more subtle tactics, such as pretending to be hurt or pretending they don't care, in an attempt to lure you back. Regardless of the form it takes, the narcissist's hoovering attempts are all about one thing: regaining control over you and getting you back into the cycle of emotional supply that feeds their insatiable need for validation. It is important to recognize that the narcissist's hoovering is not an indication of genuine remorse or a desire for self-improvement. It is simply a reflection of their emotional immaturity and their inability to process rejection in a healthy way. Their sense of self-worth is so fragile that they cannot bear to be ignored, and they'll do whatever it takes to manipulate the situation in their favor. The key to dealing with hoovering is to stay firm in your no-contact decision. The longer you resist, the more you expose their true emotional vulnerabilities, and the more desperate they become to regain their hold over you. The narcissist's need for narcissistic supply. One of the key reasons why narcissists struggle so intensely when you go no contact is due to their insatiable need for what is referred to as narcissistic supply. This supply is the emotional nourishment that they constantly seek from others to feed their fragile ego. It can take many forms, such as admiration, praise, validation, and attention. Interestingly, this supply can also be derived from negative emotions like anger, frustration, or even guilt, as long as these emotions keep the narcissist's sense of self inflated. In relationships, the narcissist typically extracts this supply from their partners, using tactics that make them feel valued and important one moment, only to devalue them the next. This roller coaster dynamic allows the narcissist to continue extracting emotional supply, while simultaneously maintaining control over the other person. However, when you decide to implement no contact, you essentially sever the flow of this supply. Without access to your attention, validation, and emotional reactions, the narcissist is left without their usual means of self-validation. This deprivation causes a deep sense of emptiness within them, as they are unable to fill the void that is created when their supply is cut off. This emptiness is not just a mild discomfort. It is a profound sense of internal lack that often drives the narcissist to act out in extreme ways. In some cases, if the narcissist has no other sources of supply readily available, the emotional void becomes even more unbearable. This is when the behavior can escalate significantly. They may lash out in anger, attempt to manipulate you with guilt or emotional blackmail, or even resort to spreading lies and rumors about you to others in an effort to regain some form of validation. The narcissist is essentially desperate to fill the hole left by the absence of your attention and emotional energy, and they will go to great lengths to seek out any form of external validation to soothe the pain of rejection. The narcissist's emotional struggles. At first glance, it may appear that the narcissist is unaffected by your absence, as they often present themselves as indifferent or unbothered. They might try to convince others or even themselves that they don't care about the end of the relationship or your decision to go no contact. However, beneath this facade of indifference, the narcissist is actually grappling with an intense internal struggle. The reality is that their emotional landscape is far more tumultuous than they let on. Narcissists possess an extremely fragile self-esteem that is built entirely on the validation they receive from others. Because their sense of self-worth is dependent on external approval, the absence of that validation creates a significant emotional blow. This blow to their ego is something they cannot easily recover from, as their self-esteem is not strong enough to withstand such a challenge. However, rather than acknowledging or processing their emotional vulnerability in a healthy manner, narcissists tend to react in ways that are defensive and unhealthy. They may feel a complex mix of sadness, anger, confusion, and even humiliation. This emotional turmoil, while intense, is something the narcissist is unable to confront directly. Instead of allowing themselves to experience and process these emotions, they will typically deny their existence, suppress them, or direct them outward in unhealthy ways. They may redirect their pain onto others, projecting their own feelings of inadequacy and hurt onto people close to them. By doing so, they deflect attention from their own emotional vulnerability and place the blame for their pain onto someone else. This projection serves to protect their fragile self-image, but it also prevents them from dealing with the underlying emotions. In some cases, the narcissist might try to convince themselves that they never needed you in the first place, or that they're better off without you. This is a defense mechanism designed to protect their ego from the overwhelming feelings of rejection and loss. They might tell themselves that you were never really important to them, or that the relationship was a waste of time. However, deep down, the emotional impact of your absence is undeniable. The narcissist's inability to process emotions in a healthy way means that they will continue to cycle through these feelings without ever truly confronting them. They may feel anger, sadness, and a deep sense of emptiness, but they will never allow themselves the space to fully experience or understand these emotions. Instead, they will continue to suppress and deny them, creating an ongoing emotional struggle that is never resolved. The narcissist's fear of abandonment. When you decide to implement no contact, you unknowingly trigger one of the narcissist's most deeply ingrained fears, the fear of abandonment. This fear is not a new or superficial response. It is a deeply rooted emotion that stems from their childhood experiences, where they may have felt neglected, rejected, or unimportant. In many cases, the narcissist's early years were marked by emotional neglect or inconsistent care, which left them feeling like their needs were not being met. These early wounds left lasting scars, and as adults, narcissists carry this profound fear of being left behind. It manifests in a distorted view of relationships, where they often see others merely as objects to be used for their benefit, rather than as individuals with their own needs, feelings, and autonomy. As adults, narcissists build their identities on a foundation of self-importance, relying on external validation to reinforce their sense of worth. Their ability to manipulate others into fulfilling their emotional needs becomes a cornerstone of their existence. However, when you choose to remove yourself from their lives, when you go no contact, it forces them to confront a harsh reality. It confronts them with the possibility that they are not as invincible, indispensable, or needed as they once believed. This is a terrifying thought for the narcissist, as it challenges their carefully constructed image of themselves as irreplaceable and admired. The idea of being abandoned shatters their illusion of control, causing their deepest fears to surface. This fear of abandonment can drive the narcissist into desperate and often toxic behaviors. They may attempt to reel you back in with hoovering, trying to emotionally manipulate you into returning to the relationship. Hoovering tactics can include sending text messages, calling you repeatedly, or even trying to initiate contact through social media. They may act charming and affectionate, as if nothing ever went wrong, in an effort to regain control over you and your emotions. Their aim is to restore the feeling of security and control that they once had when they were in your life, even if this means mistreating you, manipulating you, or disregarding your boundaries. The narcissist's fear of being abandoned is so powerful that they will go to great lengths to ensure that they are not left alone. In addition to hoovering, the narcissist may resort to emotional manipulation, guilt-tripping, or even smear campaigns. These attempts are often designed to make you feel responsible for their pain or to turn others against you. If they believe that attacking your character or spreading lies will pressure you into coming back, they will not hesitate to do so. The narcissist is driven by a need to regain the narcissistic supply you once provided, and this can lead to a range of manipulative tactics aimed at achieving that goal. Their behavior becomes increasingly erratic as they scramble to fill the emotional void that your absence has created. This is where their true emotional immaturity becomes evident, their inability to process and manage their own feelings of vulnerability, rejection, and fear. So, what happens to the narcissist when you go no contact? In short, it becomes a time of emotional chaos and turmoil for them. Their carefully constructed facade of invulnerability begins to crack as their ego is bruised, and their sense of control over you is shattered. For the narcissist, the loss of control is often unbearable, as it threatens their entire sense of self-worth. But no matter how hard they try to regain their supply, the truth remains that their emotional struggles are rooted in their inability to self-soothe or process their feelings in a healthy way. Instead of turning inward to address their emotions, they seek external validation to patch the cracks in their fragile ego. The narcissist's behavior during this time can be extreme. They might project their pain onto others, blaming you for abandoning them, or portraying themselves as the victim in the situation. Anger, confusion, and frustration may build up inside them, and they may lash out as a way of regaining some semblance of control. They may even convince themselves that they are better off without you, trying to rationalize their loss in a way that protects their fragile ego. However, deep down, they are struggling with feelings of inadequacy, sadness, and loneliness. The fear of abandonment continues to haunt them, and this fear can manifest in erratic and unhealthy ways. Despite their attempts to regain control and manipulate you into returning, the power of no contact is undeniable. Going no contact is one of the most powerful tools you have to protect your mental health and regain your peace. It allows you to break free from the toxic dynamics that the narcissist has created and to reclaim control over your own life. By setting and maintaining clear boundaries, you are not only protecting yourself, but you are also denying the narcissist the narcissistic supply they crave. This can have a profound effect on their emotional state, pushing them to confront their deepest fears, although they will rarely acknowledge the true reasons for their distress. I hope today's discussion has shed some light on what truly happens to the narcissist when you go no contact. If you found this video helpful, please like, subscribe, and share it with others who may benefit from this information. I'd love to hear your experiences and thoughts in the comments below. Let us continue the conversation and support each other in our journeys. Thank you for watching, and remember to take care of yourselves. Until next time, stay strong and prioritize your well-being.